The feeling that players get while firing a weapon at 90 miles an hour and still hitting all their shots on enemies makes them feel badass. On a rampage to eliminate the entire opposition, SMGs have an upper hand when it comes to dishing out damage the fastest. Against an opponent who relies on reducing the recoil as much as possible, SMG players can simply run straight in, head first, and use the tight spread and fast fire rate of the SMG to annihilate anything that stands in their way. SMGs have been around since the start of the 20th century, and the guns belonging to that class have evolved tremendously. So how are they portrayed in games, and just how useful are they? History of the auto-firing gun. Before looking at all the boomsticks, let's see how the idea of the SMG was invented. In 1918, the Germans were in their trigger-happy phase and were developing new and improved weapons to be used in World War I. While wondering about what could give them an edge in the war, some German guy named Bergmann Waffenfabrik doused 10 mugs of beer and thought, I've got this insane idea for a weapon. It's a pistol, but it doesn't stop firing. And lo and behold, we have the great-great-grandfather of SMGs, the pinnacle of automatic weaponry, the MP18. If you look at it, it kinda looks like a crossover between a pump-action shotgun and an assault rifle. Nevertheless, this bad boy could dish out a total of 500 bullets per minute. It was the first ever SMG to be used practically in war, and it did the job well. We'll leave the founding fathers' defeat for another story. But still, the MP18 formed the basis for many future SMGs like the Sten, which is a popular weapon used in World War-type games. While this tiny pecker went out of use in just a few decades, another fast-firing weapon showed up and took the realm of warfare by surprise. People often mistake it for an assault rifle, but since it fires small-caliber rounds, it falls into the SMG category. You've seen this weapon in the hands of those fat-bellied, no-good mafia members. It's none other than the Thompson 1921, or as we like to call it, the Tommy gun. Little old Tommy here could fire up to 900 bullets per minute and was chambered in 45 ACP rounds. You might remember this gun from Battlefield titles. Basically, you had two choices: either use a box cartridge with around 25 rounds, or go banana mode and stick in a barrel holding 50 to 100 rounds. If you decided to use this in a multiplayer game, then you'd be hearing a lot of unfriendly things from the other side because of how devastatingly overpowered it could be. Luckily, games are designed to cut back on real-life ideas and balance them out to make them more playable. It's hard to balance SMG mechanics in-game, mainly because of their fast fire rate, the main SMGs, and what makes them good. Now that we've found out exactly where these lightning-fast bullet rainers came from, let's fast forward into modern times and say hello to the most used and most popular SMGs shown in games. Let's start with a classic, the MP5. Ah yes, the good old Valve CS 1.6 days. Everyone knows the MP5. It's become a must-have in every first and third-person shooter game. Chambered in at 9mm rounds and shooting up to 680 rounds per minute, this gun is lightweight, fully customizable, and highly mobile. Don't take my word for it. Watch this. It's a highly accurate and tactile gun capable of firing off rounds in a relatively straight path. The small chambering also makes it so the gun has little to no recoil at all. Next, we've got a doozy because no gun except the minigun fires as fast as this one. In comes the KRISS Vector. This futuristic weapon that looks as if it belongs in a sci-fi movie can shoot up to 1500 rounds per minute and is chambered in 45 ACP and 9mm. Anything standing in its way gets turned into Swiss cheese. However, with speed comes increased recoil. You could attach a stock to it, but with only the foregrip attached, controlling its recoil is like trying to play chicken with a ball. Its destructive potential is staggering. Another SMG that we should include is the P90. Now, what makes this gun different? Well, I'll let you reload your mag first before answering. Shooting those 25 bullets must have taken a toll on you. Psych! The P90 comes chambered in 5.7mm rounds and holds 50 or more bullets in its top magazine chamber. Much like the Vector, it's also capable of firing bullets pretty fast, with an RPM of around 1100. Finally, we'll also consider the MP7. Kinda looks like an Uzi, but more posh. The MP7 is a weapon that can dish out damage at close range equal to that of an assault rifle because of the rounds that it uses. Chambered in at 4.7mm rounds, it can shoot high-velocity bullets that can penetrate KRISS armor at a distance of 200 meters. That doesn't seem to be the case when I use it in-game though. This game sucks. How they're used in games. The use of the SMG in different games has seen a lot of evolution and rework. Each new game coming out, it seems like the uses of an SMG multiply. For instance, back when Fortnite was still in its early days, it had an SMG that was to be used as a hipfire weapon once you got up close and personal with an enemy. The damage that it dealt at long distances was like pelting overripe grapes at a grizzly bear. It did little to no damage and only made the sweaty Joes fix their attention on you after which they proceeded to build their way to you, showcase their editing skills, and give you a little haircut using the pump shotgun. In older Call of Duty games, you're asked to choose a class that suits your playstyle, and if your playstyle is think later, shoot first, then the SMG class was made for you. W key your way into enemy front lines and fire away without aiming. Because of the tighter spread of bullets than an assault rifle, you can do away with all the aiming and hip-fire your way to victory and incur some distasteful remarks from the enemy team. This used to be the case up until the game companies started taking a more inclusive approach when designing their weapons. Shooter game developers decided that the idea of classes was getting old school, and the weapon mechanics needed a little twist to make games more fun. Boy, did they succeed at that. Now you can see players customize their fast-firing SMGs to dish out the same amount of damage at long range as well. The need for assault rifles almost became redundant, and you could find every player in the game carrying an SMG because of how fast it could delete everything in under a second. The evolution of SMGs with the new mechanics. This was the case in fast-paced score-based games like Counter-Strike, Valorant, and Call of Duty. However, the idea of turning an SMG into an assault rifle is still absurd. So to balance out the buff that the guns had gained from their rework, developers introduced a mechanic into games called damage drop-off. How it worked was that, well, shoot at close enemy is good, shoot at far enemy is not good. SMGs were now ineffective against players that were at a significant distance from you. It was only if you could hit your shots perfectly on their heads that they would still be viable. But the main thing still stood. These were the fastest firing guns in shooting games, and they could easily beat a gun that had more damage but a significantly slower fire rate. In competitive shooter games like Valorant, if an enemy team has the upper hand and has the economy to buy rifles against you, it's not a bad idea to go for the cheaper Stinger and hold a corner. That way, when an enemy pushes up to you, you can pump them full of lead faster than they can react. However, not all games balance their SMGs just right, because in some cases, you could have your crosshair directly on the enemy, but would still miss all your shots for some reason, which you would most likely call lag. But in most cases, you could blame it on lag, sure. But here, it's not anyone's fault except the game's weapon design. On the contrary, when an SMG is given way too much damage along with its fire rate, it can cause a lot of discontent among players. They'd argue that using an SMG tends to be selfish, unsportsmanlike, rude, and plain annoying. I'd think the same if I kept getting killed by the same guy who's hiding in the same corner for the past 5 minutes. SMGs are essentially used for mid to close range combat, eliminating the need to reload small chamber weapons, which are usually pistols. In real life, SMGs are effective for hundreds of meters, and if this was brought into games, the need for assault rifles would be removed. Since shooter games tend to have a small map for fast-paced gameplay, SMGs would be perfect for them, but to make things fairer, realism was cut back and quality of life was introduced. So which games do you think have utilized SMGs the best, and which is your favorite SMG of all time? Let us know in the comments. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more gaming content. I'll see you in the next one. Peace!